The Zelda timeline is over 30 years of games that somehow all connect into one massive story. Except it doesn't connect into one story, it connects into 3 separate timelines that all branch off from a single moment in Ocarina of Time. In every single game, every hero, every villain exists because one Demon King cursed 2 teenagers before he died. Today I'm breaking down every major era from creation to collapse, and trust me, it gets complicated fast. Starting with the moment that damned everyone. The era of legend Skyward Sword begins the entire Zelda timeline, with humanity living on floating islands in the sky because the surface world is too dangerous to inhabit. The goddess Hylia lifted civilization into the clouds to escape demons rampaging below. The surface is a wasteland filled with ancient machinery and a demon king named Demise who wants the Triforce. Link descends to the surface, forges the Master Sword, and defeats Demise using the Triforce's power. Here's where it gets permanent. Demise, dying and sealed within the sword itself, speaks one final sentence that creates thousands of years of conflict. He curses Link and Zelda, declaring that an incarnation of his hatred will eternally pursue those who share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero. One dying curse from a defeated demon king, and suddenly every Link, every Zelda, and every incarnation of Ganon across the entire franchise exists because they're bound together in an endless cycle of reincarnation and conflict. Every game, every timeline, every branch, all of it traces back to the single moment when Demise decided that if he couldn't win, nobody would ever know peace. And that's just the foundation. The Force era is next, and it introduces a completely different villain who also refuses to stay dead. The Force era, Hyrule, survived its founding and entered a period of relative peace, where nothing particularly horrible had happened yet. But then an evil sorcerer named Vati showed up, and suddenly the kingdom had to prove it could actually defend itself. Here's the thing about Vati. He wasn't some ancient sealed darkness or a reincarnation of anything. He was just a regular Minish who got greedy, found a magic hat called the Mage's Cap, and turned himself into a powerful sorcerer, which honestly makes him more dangerous in some ways, because it proves that evil in Hyrule doesn't need ancient curses. Sometimes it just shows up because someone wanted more power. The Minish are tiny fairy creatures who live in the forests and help forge legendary weapons. They created the 4 swords specifically to deal with Vati. The sword splits its wielder into 4 identical copies, so they can overwhelm the sorcerer through sheer numbers. 4 links are better than 1. But here's where the Force era establishes something critical. Vati gets defeated and sealed inside the Force sword, not destroyed, sealed, because evil in Hyrule can only be temporarily contained, never permanently eliminated. Vati will be resurrected in later eras, proving that sealing away threats just kicks the problem down the road for the next generation. This era also shows that Hyrule's magical artifacts are being invented rather than inherited from ancient times. The Force sword isn't some relic from the goddesses. It's a tool created by mortals working with the Minish to solve a specific problem. At least Vati stays sealed for a while. Unlike the horror show that's about to unfold in the era of the Hero of Time. The era of the Hero of Time. Ocarina of Time creates the single most consequential moment in Zelda history. And here's the thing, Link causes it by accident. Princess Zelda tells young Link to gather the spiritual stones and open the door of time to stop Ganondorf. But when Link pulls the Master Sword, he gets sealed in the Sacred Realm for 7 years. During those 7 years, Ganondorf walks through the door Link just opened, steals the Triforce of Power, and becomes the Demon King Ganon. The hero literally created the conditions for the villain's rise. Adult Link wakes up 7 years later and defeats Ganondorf. The 7 sages seal him in the corrupted Sacred Realm, now the Dark World. Victory, right? But then Princess Zelda does something that fractures reality itself. She sends Link back to his childhood using time magic. That single decision splits the timeline into 3 parallel worlds. In the child timeline, Link returns to childhood and warns Princess Zelda about Ganondorf before it happens, preventing his rise to power. In the adult timeline, the hero vanishes permanently, leaving a world without its protector when Ganondorf inevitably escapes. And in the fallen hero timeline, Link loses the final battle. Ganondorf obtains all 3 Triforce pieces, and the 7 sages seal him with the complete Triforce in the Dark World. The fallen hero timeline is the darkest branch. It asks, what happens if the hero fails? And the answer is centuries of decline, the imprisoning war, and a Hyrule that never recovers. But at least that timeline still has a sealed Ganon, unlike what happens when an entire kingdom loses its hero forever. The decline of Hyrule. This is the timeline where Link loses. In the fallen hero timeline, Ganondorf wins his final battle against the Hero of Time, obtains all 3 pieces of the Triforce, and transforms into the Demon King Ganon with complete divine power. The Sacred Realm becomes the Dark World. Hyrule has no destined protector. The hero, who was supposed to save everything, is dead. So the 7 sages do the only thing they can. They seal Ganon and the complete Triforce inside the corrupted sacred realm, trapping ultimate power with ultimate evil and hoping the seal holds forever. It doesn't work cleanly. Ganon's monster army is already raging across Hyrule when the sages begin their spell. The Knights of Hyrule, the last organized military force the kingdom has, charge into battle knowing they won't survive. They die buying time for the sages to complete the sealing ritual. Every single knight perishes defending the spell. The seal works, but the cost is catastrophic. And here's where it gets dark. The kingdom doesn't recover. Hyrule enters centuries of decline. The land becomes desolate. The people become impoverished. The golden age is over. The kingdom slowly decays under the weight of containing evil rather than defeating it. They're not thriving. They're not prospering. They're just surviving under the shadow of a sealed threat that never truly goes away. The imprisoning war becomes legend. The dead knights become mythology. And Hyrule becomes a land defined by what it lost rather than what it built. This timeline proves that heroic failure has permanent consequences. Link's defeat doesn't just kill one person, it kills the kingdom's future. At least in the other timelines, Hyrule has a chance to prosper. Here, they're permanently broken. The era of light and dark, centuries after the imprisoning war sealed Ganon away. Hyrule is broke, powerless, and clinging to legends about heroes who might never return. Which brings us to A Link to the Past, where an evil priest named Aghanim starts kidnapping maidens and breaking the seal that's been holding Ganon back for generations. Here's the thing, Aghanim isn't just some religious zealot with a god complex. He's a puppet. Ganon's influence, even from inside his prison in the Dark World, extends far enough to create servants, manipulate minds, and orchestrate his own resurrection. The priest thinks he's serving power, but he's actually just a meat puppet for a sealed demon king. Link discovers that Hyrule exists in 2 states simultaneously. The Light World, which is normal rustic Hyrule, and the Dark World, a twisted mirror reflection where everything beautiful becomes grotesque and the geography warps into a nightmare. The Dark World is what happens when Ganon's evil corrupts the sacred realm. It's not a separate dimension, it's the same place, just filtered through pure malevolence. The 7 maidens who helped create the original seal are imprisoned in crystals across the Dark World. Freeing them weakens Ganon's hold, but it also means Link has to traverse both worlds constantly, switching between them using magic mirrors and portals. The mechanic becomes the metaphor. You can't fix one world without dealing with the corruption in the other. Aghanim's defeat reveals the truth. He was never the real threat. Ganon was controlling him the entire time, using the priest to weaken the seal from the outside, while Ganon pushed from within. Link kills Ganon, recovers the Triforce, and uses its power to restore Hyrule. But here's what this era proves. Even centuries-old seals require new heroes to maintain them. Demise's curse guarantees that Ganon will keep returning, in new forms, with new plans, using new pawns. This Link's victory is legitimate, but it's temporary. It's always temporary. At least he got to enjoy the peace, unlike what's about to happen in the timeline, where the hero never showed up at all. The Golden Era, following Link's victory in A Link to the Past, Hyrule enters an actual period of peace and prosperity, which, if you've been paying attention, is basically a miracle. The kingdom rebuilds, successive kings use pieces of the Triforce to maintain stability, and for once, things are going well. But here's where good intentions create catastrophic problems. The royal family, recognizing the Triforce's power and the constant threat it poses, establishes a system of protection and secrecy around it. The Triforce remains in royal custody, guarded and hidden, with knowledge of its location passed down through royal succession. For generations, this works. The kingdom stays stable. Peace holds. Turns out, no. Eventually, something breaks. Maybe a king dies before passing on critical information. Maybe political upheaval disrupts succession. Maybe the knowledge degrades over generations like a game of telephone played across centuries. What matters is that the system fails. The Triforce's location becomes fragmented knowledge, pieces hidden so thoroughly that even the royal family can't fully account for where everything is. The Golden Era establishes something critical. Hyrule's stability isn't natural. Peace doesn't just happen. The kingdom requires active, magical maintenance. Hidden Triforce pieces, sealed villains, constant vigilance. The moment that maintenance lapses, even slightly, everything starts falling apart. Lost knowledge creates power vacuums, and power vacuums in Hyrule always lead to conflict. No games are actually set during this era, so the specifics remain gaps for speculation. It's a documented historical period that exists entirely in references and backstory, which is, not ideal. But if you think lost Triforce knowledge is a problem, wait until you see what happens when an entire realm of sentient darkness decides to invade. The Twilight Realm, the child timeline, looked like it had dodged the worst of Ganondorf's evil. Link went back in time, warned Zelda, and Ganondorf got arrested before he could do anything. Problem solved, right? Turns out, no, because when the ancient sages tried to execute Ganondorf in the Arbiter's grounds, his Triforce of power activated mid execution, making him functionally unkillable. He broke free, murdered one of the sages, and forced the survivors to banish him to the Twilight Realm as a last-ditch containment effort, which is where things get horrifying. In the Twilight Realm, Ganondorf finds Zant, a power-hungry servant furious at being passed over for the throne in favor of Princess Midna. Ganondorf offers him godlike power in exchange for invasion. Zant accepts, usurps Midna, transforms her into an imp, and launches a full-scale assault on Hyrule. His weapon is the Twilight itself, a spreading supernatural darkness that converts humans into invisible spirits while leaving monsters completely unaffected. Hyrule Castle falls. Princess Zelda surrenders to save her people. The kingdom is systematically consumed. Link gets cursed during this invasion, transformed into a wolf whenever he enters Twilight regions. He teams up with the deposed Midna to restore the four spirits of light and push back the invasion. This era represents the child timeline's absolute darkest hour, where survival depends on an alliance between a wolf-cursed hero and a cursed princess fighting to reclaim two worlds simultaneously. Link defeats Ganondorf in their final battle, but the resolution comes through separation rather than conquest. Midna, restored to her true form, breaks the Mirror of Twilight from her realm, permanently severing the connection between Hyrule and the Twilight Realm. It's a sacrifice ending, not a victory lap. Peace through enforced isolation. But if you think a realm sealed forever is the end of dark magic in the child timeline, the Shadow Era proves containment is always temporary. The Shadow Era, centuries after Twilight Princess sealed Ganondorf away, the child timeline finally had peace. But if you think that lasted, you haven't been paying attention to how this franchise works, because Ganon came back, stole the trident in the Dark Mirror, and decided to release Vaati from the Four Sword Seal just to make things interesting. Here's the thing about the Dark Mirror. It doesn't just reflect your face, it reflects the evil in your heart and brings it to life as a physical entity. When Ganon aimed it at Link, it created Shadow Link, a manifestation of the hero's darkness inverted into destructive force. Not a separate villain, not a possessed copy. Link's own courage and determination twisted into something that wants to destroy him, which means Link had to fight himself while also dealing with both Ganon and Vaati at the same time. Two incarnations of evil, both active threats, both requiring different fates. The Four Sword split Link into 4 copies to handle the workload, because apparently one hero wasn't enough for this mess. And here's where it gets weird. After successfully defeating Vaati and sealing Ganon in the Four Sword, with help from Zelda and the Shrine Maidens, the child timeline just stops. No more documented games, no further history. This branch, which spans centuries from Majora's Mask through Twilight Princess to Four Swords adventures, becomes the shortest in terms of documented content despite covering the longest actual time frame. The Shadow Era represents the endpoint of everything that started when Zelda sent Link back to childhood. Peace, war, Twilight invasions, shadow manifestations, all resolved. But at least this timeline got a resolution. The adult timeline, on the other hand, got flooded. The Hero of Winds. After the Hero of Time vanished into the child timeline, the adult timeline faced a problem nobody saw coming. Ganondorf escaped his seal, and there was no hero to stop him. The gods had a choice: watch Ganondorf rule forever, or end the kingdom entirely. They chose option 2. They flooded the entire kingdom, drowning Hyrule beneath an endless ocean, and leaving only the highest mountain peaks visible as scattered islands across the Great Sea. Every institution, every castle, every town submerged. The entire civilization became an underwater tomb. Centuries later, a new Link emerges on one of these islands. He's got the cartoonish Toon Link appearance, which threw people off at first, but the bloodline holds. He's the Hero of Winds, and his world is completely transformed. Instead of exploring connected landmass, he's sailing across an ocean dotted with islands, discovering that beneath the waves lies the ruins of the original Hyrule, preserved underwater like a museum exhibit nobody asked for. Link recovers the Master Sword from these sunken ruins, and here's where it gets dark. The blade has been weakened by thousands of years of submersion. The most powerful weapon in Hyrule's history, the one that sealed Ganondorf in the first place, has lost its edge. Time and water eroded its power. It's a metaphor for what happened to the entire kingdom. Everything that once stood strong has decayed beneath the waves. After defeating Ganondorf, Tetra, who turns out to be Princess Zelda because of course she is, and Link make a decision. They're not rebuilding old Hyrule. They're done with that drowned kingdom. They sail to uncharted territory and establish New Hyrule, founding a fresh civilization with zero connection to the original kingdom's institutions or historical memory. No sacred realm, no temple of time, no ancient prophecies. They're starting over from scratch. But if you think drowning an entire civilization is the most radical transformation in Zelda history, wait until you see what happens when the timelines potentially converge thousands of years later. The era of the Great Voyage and New Hyrule. 100 years after the Hero of Winds established New Hyrule, his descendants built something unprecedented, a civilization that literally ran on the chains that once bound a Demon King. The railroad tracks crisscrossing New Hyrule aren't just infrastructure, they're repurposed magical restraints from Malladus's imprisonment, transformed from weapons of containment into tools of connection and progress, which is, not the most comforting origin story for your transportation system. This era introduces a new Link several generations removed from the original hero, who becomes a train engineer rather than a swordsman. He partners with Princess Zelda, descendant of Tetra, to confront the Demon King Malladus, a manifestation of evil that emerges through Chancellor Cole. And here's the thing, even in a completely new land, separated from the original Hyrule by an entire ocean, in centuries of history, Demise's curse still finds a way to manifest. New continent, new kingdom, same eternal problem. The defeat of Malladus represents the apparent conclusion of the adult timeline's documented history. Spirit Tracks is the last game officially placed in this branch. No sequels, no follow-ups, no hints about what happens next. The timeline just stops here, creating a temporal gap where everything beyond remains unknown. We have no idea if New Hyrule thrives for thousands of years or collapses the following Tuesday. Nintendo left that question completely open, but if you think a timeline branch ending ambiguously is unusual, wait until you see what happens when all three timelines allegedly converge 10,000 years in the future during the Great Calamity. The era of the Great Calamity. Breath of the Wild is officially placed at the end of all timelines, not one branch, all of them. Nintendo has deliberately kept this ambiguous, and as of 2026, they're still not giving us a straight answer about whether this is a convergence point or a separate branch entirely. Here's what we do know. 10,000 years before the game starts, Calamity Ganon rose from beneath Hyrule Castle and immediately took control of 4 divine beasts and an army of guardian robots, all built by the ancient Sheikah civilization, specifically to defend against this exact threat. Your anti-Ganon defense system becomes Ganon's primary weapon, and suddenly you're being hunted by laser-shooting spiders that you built yourself. Princess Zelda of that era sealed Calamity Ganon using her awakened power, but the damage was already done. The game itself begins 100 years after a second Great Calamity. Hyrule has regressed, not just politically, but technologically and civilizationally. The kingdom that once built massive mechanical god beasts is now scattered communities rebuilding piecemeal, treating ancient technology like mysterious artifacts. The Sheikah knowledge has been almost entirely lost. The divine beasts are dormant. The guardians are rusted husks, and Link wakes up in a resurrection shrine with no memory, which is a hell of a way to start your morning. This regression suggests something catastrophic happened beyond just Ganon's attack. Whether that's a timeline reset event, a convergence collapse, or simply the natural decay of 10,000 years, nobody knows. But Hyrule and Breath of the Wild feels less like a continuation of previous games, and more like a world that's forgotten its own history. The champions, the divine beasts, even the Master Sword, all of it has become myth rather than documented fact. The entire timeline has been mythologized into cultural memory, and Nintendo did this on purpose. By placing Breath of the Wild at the end of everything, they freed themselves from timeline constraints. It's all of them, or none of them, or something else entirely. If you think ambiguous timeline placement is bad, the next era somehow makes it worse. The era of reconstruction. Tears of the Kingdom is the most recent game in the franchise, which means it sits at the absolute bleeding edge of the timeline, and nobody knows where the hell it actually goes. Nintendo has been deliberately vague about this game's timeline placement. It clearly follows Breath of the Wild, but how it connects to the broader 3-branch structure remains a complete mystery. The official word is essentially it's after Breath of the Wild, which is the timeline equivalent of saying it takes place in Hyrule. Here's where it gets weird. The game features floating islands that look suspiciously like Skyloft from Skyward Sword. It introduces a founding of Hyrule story that doesn't match any previously established founding, and it presents a past involving Zonai technology and ancient sages that chronologically should come after Skyward Sword but feels disconnected from everything else. This has created the most divisive timeline debate in franchise history. One camp believes all 3 timelines merge back together. Another thinks the floating islands suggest a complete temporal loop, where the distant future becomes the ancient past, and the entire franchise cycles back to Skyward Sword's creation myth. A third camp insists Nintendo just stopped caring about timeline consistency. The loop theory has compelling evidence. Floating islands echoing Skyloft. Ancient sky civilizations descending to the surface, a founding myth mirroring Skyward Sword's structure. If this holds, then the entire Zelda timeline isn't a branching tree, but a circle, where the end becomes the beginning and Demise's curse ensures the cycle continues forever. But Nintendo won't confirm any of it. Producers have given interviews where they essentially shrug and say the timeline is whatever you want it to be. So the entire timeline structure now hinges on how you interpret one game's placement. If Tears represents a true cycle, then nothing in Zelda has a definitive end. ending. If it's a convergence, the three branches were always destined to reunite. If it's separate, then these games exist outside the timeline entirely, and that ambiguity might be the point. The timeline was never a rigid historical document, but rather a mythology where interpretation is part of the experience. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.